Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. Welcome to KIMEcast. Tony Mikla, Russ Dunning. So I thought we'd have some fun today. We've been talking a lot about, health, wellness, things we do, whether we're using different technologies to maximize our health or whether we're, using something in business and these different things. And so I thought we could put the pedal to the metal here, put the money where the mouth is, so to speak, and be like, all right, we all have this phone and, we've gone over what books we've read, and I thought we could go over what apps we use on this phone. We all have got a phone that kind of controls your life, like it or not. It's a great tool, a great asset. And I think it's interesting as you start thinking about how you spend your time in your day or how you spend your time in your life and what you consider to be valuable. And I think it kind of shows up on probably what you use on your phone, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll find out. Because I think Russ's phone is going to be really interesting. And I think it's really going to line up really, really well with the things that you value. Like we've been talking about wearing the meter, so that's on there, right?
Yep, it's a company called Stello. It's one of the apps that I got addicted to. I think when it comes to apps, I almost get like a mild addiction for a brief period of time.
You do. You have surges.
Like surges, yeah. So it's not like I always use 30 apps, but there's periods of time when I'm in rapid learning, and then maybe I use an app for that rapid learning. So I wanted to rapidly learn how my body uses sugar, which is you could think of like you could probably judge your protein and the health of your protein simply by looking at your muscle mass. That might be a way of looking at, do I have enough protein in my diet? Look at how much muscle. Do you have enough muscle? Good. Call it what it is. And maybe you could do the same thing for your bones and tendons by how much collagen you have. Maybe. I somewhat bought into there. I think you could determine how well your healthy fats are by looking at how good your immune system is. Do you deal with colds and viruses well? Do you, do you have a lot of fat on you? Oddly enough, if you have good fat, you tend not to have a lot of fat on you. It's kind of like that weird misnomer.
Yeah.
But the third category of macronutrients is carbohydrates. And if you want to know how good you process carbohydrates, then that's all comes down to sugar. So I used Stello, an app that I used every day for 75 days straight to aggressively learn how that. And now I didn't buy the fifth sensor. And so I haven't used it in 2 weeks, but I went through a deep dive.
This is how you roll.
Yeah.
This is how I've watched you do this for many things. So you dive deep, you go something like this, 2-3 months, you get all this information, and then you make a decision like, oh, this is valuable, and I learned this and this and this, and now I can change my behavior, and then boom, and then I don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah, I'm off of it. I don't need it. I don't need it anymore.
You do this in a variety of things in life. I think it's great. I mean, it's such a great feature that you like, but you don't just kind of like, I kind of use it. Like that doesn't work for you.
Yeah, you're either all in or all out, and it's skill acquisition. So I obtained this. It sounds so weird, but I obtained the skill of not having too much sweet. What a weird skill. You would think that a person should just be able to do that.
Yes.
No, we all need accountability. And a lot of times apps become my accountability. So that might be a more philosophical thing. It's not really it's not a fun thing. It's an accountability measure that I impose on myself.
Love it. And do you have anything else in the health space?
So Polar. So Polar is kind of like the king of understanding your heart rate. Which is tied loosely to sugar, but nonetheless, so Polar was, so there was a while where I was always tracking my heart rate during workouts.
Yes.
So I used the chest strap, I used a watch, I used an armband. I did every workout for, it was probably like a year. I learned HRV. I did HRV every morning, which means I had to calm down, I'd relax, I had to chill for like 3 minutes, and it looked at how my heart rate, all heart rates have a sinusoidal rhythm. So it's a rhythm, just goes like this. And so your heart rate gently raises and then it gently decreases. And that wave pattern, you can understand how broad your amplitude is, which is indicative of your heart rate variability. So I used Polar and another one called Morpheus to understand my heart rate load with conditioning. But once I got an idea there, then once again, I got off it. So I haven't used Polar in like a year. What do you use? So I got 2 health ones. What's your?
Yeah, I have 2.
I know you're big.
I have a few health things as well. So one of my health ones would be sleep. So I just have my sleep number bed, and I just use the sleep number app. I don't even use this anymore, but again, like you, I was into it for a few months. That was pretty cool.
What'd you learn?
Great question. I learned right now my average is 80 on my score, by the way, which is not bad. I think my all-time best is 97. I think it's out of 100.
So it's like your readiness, like how good your sleep was.
Yeah, basically, it scores you, and it looks at a few things like quality of sleep, REM cycle, that type of stuff. So it's pretty good. It's kind of interesting. It's just their own score. You know, who knows what it's valued at, but it kind of gives you an idea of, are you getting the circadian rhythm and doing the thing?
Well, if you're, I think deep sleep means that you're not really moving that much at all.
Yeah, and then I mean, obviously, I think that this is valuable as far as how you feel in recovery. I've always like prided myself that I could sleep anywhere, anytime. Like I can sleep in loud places, light places. Sleep is not a problem for me. I don't like struggle like going to bed at night. Like if it's time, gone.
Yeah,
it's easy for me, and I'm fortunate that way. I realize that's a gift, but it's a huge, and I think it's a big part of my success in the fact that I have very little history of like illness or being sick or being tired, those types of things. It just doesn't happen very often.
You've been very consistent. I have to know, knowing you for whatever 20 years now, there's rarely I ever say like, oh, Tony must be tired today. You know, it's not really a thing. You're just you're always very steady.
Yeah. I haven't been sick since 2019.
wait, what happened?
You can check the records. Jesse, you could check the records.
What happened in 2019?
Well, I only know that because COVID happened in 2020, and I'd never been sick.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I was around like people. I was with Evan. Like we were on the flight to Mexico when he had it, and a man almost died next to me, and I didn't get it. Yeah. I don't know how that happened. Amazing. And then I've never had a symptom to think that I did have it over the last 5 years. So that to me stands out that I haven't been sick, because it would have come up.
Yeah.
And I, for some reason, found myself on the side of the coin where it never came up.
Well, it's a huge pillar, sleep. So you have an app.
So it's been massive. So I have that. And then I just use the Apple Health one. I think or Garmin. I have my Garmin watch on, and I'll use that once in a while from a kind of an activity monitoring standpoint, obviously. Obviously, if you do something more, it's awesome for tracking like your rides and stuff like that, which I need to do more of. But nonetheless, it's a great tool for that. I think the Garmin one's really good. The Apple Health one thing is amazing. I think it's a simple, great app. I don't have an Apple Watch at the moment. When I have had it, it's been awesome. But a great heart rate, HRV, I mean, all the little simple things. I think that's a really cool tool. You can look at trends and look at your history. I actually think that Apple Health and what they're going to do in the future
is going to change it all.
Is continue to change it all. I really think that there's a lot there.
Well, they're putting so much energy into vitals and symptoms and sleep and respiratory. I mean, gosh.
So the headphones can take your body temperature. So that's a patented feature in the headphones. They take your core body temperature, and then they can test heart rate, blood pressure through the watch, and then they measure steps and activity through the phone or the watch. And then they can measure like where you travel. They know if you're driving. They know if you're parked. They know if you go to the hospital. They know if you go to a restaurant. They know whatever, because they have GPS. They know where you're at. Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting that you start putting all that data together.
Yeah, I mean, on a bigger note, I imagine if you just asked Apple Health, how healthy is this person, without you doing too much to it, it might have a really good beat.
Well, I think that's the thing. We talked about that in some of our courses, and like I think that's part of our skill set as a PT is to be like, tell me how you're feeling today. What's going on? How are you doing? Are you getting better? Are you not getting better? Are you getting stronger? What do you want to do? What's life like? I think another way to do that and really objectify it is like open your Apple Health app and let me look at your last weeks, months, whatever. And I think that's a total change in healthcare, is to look at a trend to say, all right, your heart rate is at 65 beats a minute, and we would say that's within the norm. So you're fine, right? That's been the norm. That's been healthcare for however long, right? Yeah. A century. You're within the norm. You're good.
Yeah.
Well, we're learning that that's not true.
Yeah.
That piece of information is you're within the norm. Well, what's normal for you, right? If my norm was 55 beats a minute for the last 10 years, and now I'm at 65, some shit's hit the fan.
Something's off.
Really off.
Yeah.
Like, I'm more than ill, because I know that if I was to drink heavily, I learned that from my sleep number bed. If I was to drink heavily, that my heart rate will rise like by 10 beats a minute, resting heart rate at night. I know that if my stress level was ridiculously high, which isn't common, but if that was the case, it would jump it up 8 to 10 beats. So to go 10 beats higher and still be in the norm doesn't make me healthy, which I think is the point. So if you are looking at working with somebody, I think looking at that trend of like where were they and where are they now can give you some insight. I think too I think if you were to become sick, like say you just had a common cold or got the flu or whatever it is, I think that the resting heart rate's a predicting indicator that 1 to 2 days prior.
Probably is a good leading, tells you something's up.
You're going to see your heart rate change 2, 3, 5 beats a minute, 24 to 48 hours before symptoms start. if you were sick, look at that time and look at when you started feeling symptomatic and look at the data, and you'll see it's a leading indicator. And I think if you started doing things, maybe not medication, but maybe medication, but maybe you started doing other things like more anti-inflammatory, more turmeric, more something else natural. You change your food,
or even like ultravitamin. I think there's plenty of research of like zinc and magnesium and vitamin C and vitamin D, and go hang out in sunlight for like a few hours when you start to feel that symptom.
Imagine that. Take some zinc, get some sunlight, and get some more sleep.
Yeah.
Could you offset your 3 or 4 day illness pattern?
Yeah.
This last like period where everybody was sick, this last 2 months, people were sick for like 2 or 3 weeks. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Once again, no problem.
Yeah.
My whole family has been down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look like every sickness I look at as a mini war, and you can, if you win battles early on, it doesn't get deep. Like I think a lot of us understand, like, oh, the infection is low, or I got way deep into my chest, and I think the body works a lot like layers, and they showed this with kids dealing with COVID. It was really great research out of, I believe it was Yale, that showed that the reason why kids didn't get sick with COVID-19 they got sick very minimally compared to adults. It's proven over and over. And they did it because they dealt with the disease in their nose. The battleground in their nose was very good. Whereas adults, we had a hard time with it. It got a little deeper. And so that was really interesting when I read that research, because then I looked at the body like a fortress. And it has a moat, and then it has the castle walls, and it has the deep interior. Like, of course it does.
Yeah.
Right? It's really a smart system.
Exactly.
We have layers. And so, when you deal with the battleground and the up in your nose, up through your throat, and your immune system is strong up there, I think you fight it off. You can fight off a simple virus rapidly if you win the war up there. And so that's where I think a lot of the research going back to sleep, health, aerobic capacity, sunlight. Yeah, I like it.
Simple.
I
think there's something to that. I say that to my kids all the time. My wife like gets mad at me and stuff, and I'm like, if they've been sick for like a couple of days, or I feel like they're kind of getting sick, I like go outside.
Get to work.
You need to go outside, and for me, I say fresh air, but I also think there's a big sun component, and then of course sleep is a massive deal. Mm-hmm. And being in healthcare, like I've seen it too long for too many years where when people get a bit run down or they get stressed about something, like we talk about our pillars. If the sleep is off or if the stress is off, then boom, that's when they end up getting ill and getting sick, and their body starts to become weak. So what you just said is true, and I think that, I say that I tell the kids, like, you want to feel better, get off the couch, don't crumble up on a ball and a blanket. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's times where that's necessary, but if you're kind of like functional and you're like, I don't feel great, but I could do something, like. Yeah. I think you need to go outside and get some sunlight, and then you need to do whatever you can to maximize your sleep during that period of time.
This is germ theory versus cell theory right here. That's the battleground. The germ theory is we're all the same. If you get the germ, you'll get sick. Kind of like if we all played soccer, you all played soccer, you're all going to get hurt. Versus the cell theory is, now every cell is different. How well are you expressing your DNA currently? And if you have a healthy cellular pattern, you'll be able to resist against the onslaught of the world, which is what we think with a soccer athlete. Hey, if you do these strengthening exercises and you're good with reactivity, you can battle the forces and be exposed with bad things and probably not get injured.
I'm definitely on the cell theory side.
Yeah,
without question.
Well, what I love it is it puts it. Even if there's a component, like I think if you and I both like were around a lot of malaria, that might be a really tough one.
Sure.
But if we're around the majority of little viral things, little viral vectors that are trying to get us, we have a role. We have an actionable.
Absolutely.
Good sleep, good health, good movement, good strength of the body.
That's why we do it. I'd say that defines my life. Like that's why I do the things I do, is to like become resilient.
Yeah.
So that you can fight that stuff off. And I do think exposure is a huge part of the equation.
Yeah.
I think that if you protect yourself from not being exposed to things out of increasing your risk, then eventually it's going to get you. And when it does, it's going to hit hard.
Well, here's the real...
versus going out front and being like, hey, I'm doing all the things, my body is strong, I can take some of this. And even if I do get it, it'll be a mild effect because I've done the right things. I've built my pillars up.
Well, I think for all those who are mindful of whether you want to call it like meditation or mental health or just your own embedded psychology, I think a big part of confidence is putting yourself out there and exposing your brain to threat. And when you do that, you get used to it. And you say, I'm stronger than I thought I was. And as you gain that strength, guess what? Your hormonal profile is much better. You don't have as much chronic cortisol release. When you shelter yourself, when you do little and you're afraid of the world, you'll be more likely to be in a stress response, a fight or flight response chronically, which elevates cortisol. This is where Robert Sapolsky, author of Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, changed my life forever 20 years ago when I read that book. He's a Stanford professor in like 5 different sciences. The guy's must be the most like advanced degree I've ever read, like biology, anthropology, sociology, psychology, like I swear he's a PhD in like 5 different ologies.
I remember when you read this book and it moved you.
It moved me.
Yeah.
But what he said is pretty much all bad things in the mammalian system can be traced back to chronic stress. Maybe not every single one, but a massive one. And so you can impose chronic stress and get someone sick. That's what he proved.
Yes.
You can hyper stress, and he would study this with baboons in the savannah. He would find the baboon that's the most beat up in their little tribe, little group, and he would study that person. And as the cortisol rose and was chronically rose because that guy was getting hazed every day by some bigger baboon, they're more likely to get sick from a stressor, from an environmental stressor that everyone endured. Boom. He saw it over and over and over again. So in other words, those that are in a fight or flight response more often than not, are more likely to have all bad things. Cancer, heart disease, getting sick, bacterial infection, injured. That's how stress hormones work. We don't like them chronically. We like them acutely.
Yes,
An acute cortisol response is a hard workout.
Yes,
a chronic
exactly.
one is having a deadline that you can't get over and it gets in your head and then you can't sleep. And then now, there goes back to the sleep app that you had.
Yeah, it's so true. See, I told you this would be good.
What's your next one?
That's all I have for health, I think.
Yeah, let's move on to like other.
But I think we could do business apps. This is kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So the Notes app comes on the phone, and I used to use that a lot. And I think it's a good feature. You can use like voice dictation, and you can talk to it and stuff. I think it's okay. It doesn't have quite the organization of some other things. It has a good syncing feature, so it's kind of a good standard. But as a company, we use Google Workspaces as a tool. So we use Google Drive and these different things. So one of the tools that Google has is called Keep. And I found this to be awesome. Jesse actually brought this up a couple years ago, and I've been using it. It's great. So the way that it works is you can. It's kind of like you could use it for to-do lists or like projects. It's not. It's and you can share with people. They can collaborate. Obviously you know this. I'm telling you like you don't know, but for those of you who don't listen, so I can start like a brainstorm or something, and I can invite like Russ, I can invite Jesse, I can invite people to the brainstorm, and then they can contribute just like you do with everything on Drive. So it's really great. And then you can go back and look at it. It's easy to find, and it saves things like in kind of like cubes. So you can title the cube, and then you can see what you talked about, and then you go back to it. We use it all the time for like really like kind of quick or mild projects, not for something like a massive project, but I really like that tool.
Well, I've been evolving this tool. So I right now on my Keeps, I probably have about 50 tiles. And the problem is the tiles got too many. And I started forgetting where things were. And so then what I started doing is around each tile, let's say I have a few themes of a particular tile.
I see you can add pictures and stuff, by the way, which is cool. You can add pictures, you can do check boxes. It's cool. Yeah.
Right. So then what I started doing is of course I have ChatGPT. I was right when OpenAI announced ChatGPT, I got right on board real quick. I'm like, I'm in. I started throwing money at them right away. I'm like, I gotta learn.
This is the same surge moment. So ChatGPT is an app. We'll just talk about this. The same surge behavior from Russ once again. It's out there, all in.
All in.
Don't act like you only have ChatGPT because you have them all. Gemini, the whole thing.
I was thinking about adding a few more because I saw Deep Seek just came out, the little Chinese model.
Yeah.
That's the lightweight. It doesn't use anywhere near the same bandwidth that the other ones do. But I've been working with both Gemini, Grok, and ChatGPT. What I like is ChatGPT because it's kind of obviously it was like first. They're ahead of the curve in doing a lot of things. So now I have like a lot of threads in ChatGPT that I keep bolstering. So I add in a spreadsheet. I add in some thoughts on Keeps. I add in a picture. I add in I talk to it, like I'm in the car and I'm like, hey, I just want to add some more thoughts to this, some more context. Here's a story. And so then I have these threads. I have a leadership thread. I have a business thread. I have I have a thread on health. I have a thread that's like more medical. Like, my wife and I had like a conversation last night about, she has like a little middle ear thing. So it gave me all things to do. So we did a hearing test. We did some steam inhalation. We and so like now I have like a nice little thread so that I'll tonight when we're talking about her middle ear and how well she's hearing, I'm gonna start right in that thread. It's got 8 bullet points. So the point is I'm saving these conversations.
Yeah.
Which is the whole point of so many of these apps, is to like kind of contain the conversation. Well, now I have all these conversations in ChatGPT that are very bolstered. They're very long conversations. Some of the conversations are like several months long.
Yes.
And occasionally I'll have to say, hey, review everything above. I want to give me a snapshot of everything we talked about. Give me a summary, and we'll throw away all the crap. So I have to like revitalize the conversation.
I think that your utilization of the ChatGPT AI system is phenomenal. And if it's really, so I have the ability to use it. I have the app as well. I think it's great. I don't use it nearly as much as I usually ask you to use it on my behalf. Say, Russ, can you give, we need this document, or we need to create this thing, and can you do it? Because your ability to cue the thing is so important. And you've trained yours to be like a version of you.
Yeah.
So you can just ask it, hey, if you recognize me and recognize all of our, Kime stuff, then then tell me this, blah, blah, blah.
Well, it gets even
the
cooler.
Prompt is so important,
Well, so so I've read a lot of books. You turned me on to Audible about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And since Audible, I think I have documented 100 books I've read in the last, so I'm averaging about a book a month. Maybe. No, about a book a month. Now, sometimes I get 3-4 chapters in, and I'm like, this is kind of stupid. So I move on pretty quick, but more or less I've ingested about, let's call it 100, 120 books over the last 10 years. And they realm, health and business and leadership and philosophy. And so, I just got done reading, I'm still in the middle of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So I'm starting to get older with the books. And that's
scary.
That's like old.
Because when you come back from that surge,
I know I'm blown away by reading some really old stuff. But now what I do is I go into GPT and I'll go for a run. Once my leg heals from the Muay Thai event, I'll be able to run again. And now I go and run. Now I put a headphone on and I say, all right, I want you to act like Tim Collins, good to great. Bring me those concepts to life with this idea. Give me a 25-minute lecture series on business philosophy regarding leadership in a community to, improve our business. Now, it already knows everything about Kime because I already told it. And so now I get like, a 25-minute lecture by Mr. Collins himself, or at least in his style, with the concepts from that book, which I remember because I love the book.
Overlaid on the Kime business.
It gets really sick. Like, so that's my 25-minute run. It's so weird.
It's incredible.
It's like, talk about, I really do feel like Keanu Reeves, Matrix download.
Yeah, it's really impressive what you do with it.
What's your next step?
So we did use Mindly a little bit. Mindly was an interesting mapping. So sometimes if you're making notes, brain mapping is a little bit easier than lists. So there's a couple different ones out there. Mindly is one that we were using for a little while. I haven't used it very much lately. I kind of still like to do this on paper. So I'll use that, but if that's not handy, then I can do it in the app. It's just a little bit clunky to kind of move things around, but I'm sure it's gotten better and continues to be good. One of our leadership people thinks in circles, and the rest of us think in lines. So it's really painful to do everything in a list for her, because then we give her the list, and she's like, "I can't do it. I have to put it in a circle."
Yeah,
which is very
well, because she always says that it kind of returns back.
Yeah, it's all like a circle. So we need to do mind mapping at times to appease.
Well, I think that's really, I use that a lot in the beginning, and now we have a leadership journal that now I'm doodling all over the place.
Yes.
I think on my thing I have at least 10 different doodles, and the doodles are either an upward curve, a little Dunning-Kruger effect curve, a little circular. I drew one that had all these entities and drawing lines of value, so I get to have fun with my drawing. I think the drawing, what's so cool about seeing something visual that's not word, but a line and an arrow and a circle and an upward curve or an inflection point, and those are really important because they touch into a completely different part of your brain. And as it invokes more of that right brain storytelling thinking, I think you get creative juices flowing and things happening in your brain that would not have been otherwise if it was purely just words.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like that's a great concept. So to move out of the phone app system, I think things like to always have on you would be having a journal or some sort of book you can write in or draw in, because I think that's really important. Sometimes it's better on the phone where you can like grab a picture and the picture does 1,000 words. Like so sometimes like I'll use Keeps or I'll use Mindly or something to put a picture in and then be able to write words around it, maybe faster. But I have to have some combination of both still. But just to be clear, growing up in the era that I grew up in, if you were to give me like a lecture, if I was to go back to college and get a lecture and I just did it on my iPad, I don't know that it would work for me. Mm-hmm. Like I definitely couldn't do that now. Like if someone said, hey, you're taking notes on the iPad, even if I wrote on it with like the pencil and it like transcribed it into like text for me and all that stuff that it can do now, which is incredible. I don't know how that works, but it's incredible. Even if it did that, I don't think it would work because my memory is like a bit photographic. So like I had to write, like if I was in a lecture and I could write down the notes from listening to the speaker, like when I was in the test, I could see my notes. Like I could literally like in my head, I could like visualize it without them being there. And then I would just read it off my own brain and then answer the question. But I knew what the question was going to be on because I remember listening to the inflection of the speaker's tone. And I was like, okay, that's what's important, So I learned that skill set in college. But I had to be in lecture. Like I can't read. Like I'm not good at reading. So you'll notice I don't have any reading apps. Audible is why that's popular for me because reading and retaining information has been proven not to be my skill set, as proven by the SAT and by the GRE and everything else in my life. So nonetheless, I think I think having a notebook though, so you could either write, draw is a great asset to have in combination with whether it be the phone or if you could do it on your iPad, that's fine too. But something like that to be creative and drawn that way.
What I did with, I think everyone is a content creator. And if you're not a content creator for your business or for your career, you should be a content creator for your life. You should be creating your life and looking at what do I want to create or achieve or do this upcoming year or 3 years or 5 years or just period. What was my aim? So I need to repeat it for 2025. And it's still January. So I think I'm going to tackle it this weekend because I've been telling myself that we got to do it, is I was going to re-update a vision board for myself for 2025. And I realized that when I did this at a personal level, I didn't try and make it too businessy, but I did it with my daughters, that they followed suit. If I told them to do a vision board, they didn't do it. Or they did it and then they would argue and then cry, and that was that. And I tried that many years, like, hey, let's go and do one together. I'll help you do it. Sucked each time. Very horrible experience. And then when I did it, then they just simply kind of like pseudo-copied my recipe. Like, hey, I have 5 things I'm going to achieve. Here's my like visual. It's me, doing this thing, whatever it is. And then I might have a few words to the picture. And I did it all in slides, just Google Slides. And then they liked it because we were surfing online for some photos. We might do like an AI photo, which was just that was at the very dawn of that at the beginning last year. So I'm going to repeat that, but this goes back to slides. We use slides a lot, and it's nice because it ties a picture with a word. And I think that's really special with the human brain and with getting you connected with like, let's do something with my life.
Yeah, I agree. I have Keynote on here, and a lot of times I'll find that I'll start a presentation that I plan on making, in the future, and I'll start it like on my phone because I do believe this is a real thing. And if it's not a skill set you've acquired, I think you should do this. If your thoughts are coming fast enough, you need to write them down. Like even if you have great memory, like I can remember that or whatever. This happened to me too many times where a great idea comes in, and then I'll remember that in 2 hours because it was amazing, and I know exactly I got it. I try to like think of common words and like link it in my head. I'm like, I'll remember that, whatever. And then I don't write it down. And then 2 hours later, I'm like, I have no idea. We did it to you guys just a month ago. I'm like, what the hell did I say that you guys were like, that's amazing? I mean, that doesn't happen every day. And then no one could remember what it was. Which clearly it wasn't very amazing. But
this is the evolution of text. So, because whenever I message you, I'm like, I get on fire, right? I sent you like 1,000 words via text. I mean, so I showed it to Margie and she was like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm just sending Tony a book.
So that's where I'll use AI is to be like, summarize what Russ just said. No, but it's,
we almost need to flag it, like, put a pin in that one. That one's good. I want that over here. Let's save that. We'll have that discussion on Saturday morning,
No, yeah. Well, it is. I mean, I think texting yourself, it's a tool I use, but Keeps is my best tool for that, I've learned. But I also use Keynote as a tool to, like, if I want to add some more, like linear thought or presentation thought with, like, some photos and, like, some highlights, or, like if there's big key moments, like, okay, I need to, like, that's a summary concept. There's a story that goes with that picture or something like that. I'll use slides to, like, convey that message. I have Asana too. Asana is a great project app. We very rarely get deep enough into Asana to, like, have deep projects with the way our business is structured, that we don't use it that much, but it's a great tool.
I've used, I have this, like, video one. My kids obviously, like, shoot videos like every other person out there. And so they taught me how to do the video one, where I did the kettlebell cert. So the last kettlebell cert we had in October, it was like October 11th or whatever it was. And whole team came together to throw some kettlebells around and do a conditioning test. And the conditioning test is you need to test your heart rate in the middle of the kettlebell test. Basically, you have two parts of the test. You have swings and then get-ups. And you can't move on to get-ups until your heart rate comes down low enough. And so it's a nice, like, stopping point. Like, unless your heart rate's low enough, you don't make it to part two. So it's kind of a cool test. It's not exactly like a race. It's like, did you do all the work to allow your heart rate to be, compressed, to come down? And so I couldn't be there because we had a big soccer tournament that I was assistant coach for. So instead, I just videoed myself doing the video, and it's called Video Speed, and it allows me to do, like, a 15-minute video, but then I compress it. So I was doing rapid swings, and I slowed it down for me moment while I put the camera. That was round one. And then I also, like, slowed it down when I was catching my heart rate in the middle of the test. So it's kind of nice because I made like a 45-second video that showed a 15-minute test. But it wasn't like you were just looking at someone on speed the entire time. It was, just speed during the boring part. So that was kind of a nice one.
Love it. No, that's super good. What else do I have? I have Zoom, obviously. We use Google Meets as well. We have Canva for our social media stuff. I use Weave. Weave is our phone system that we utilize. So that's a great tool to use on there as well.
Every morning I do Feel Fit because I hop on my scale and I check my body weight.
Okay.
And I do that.
I've never heard about this one. Is the surge coming, or this is an old one we just missed?
Well, so I did it for a while, and then I got off of it, and I got back on it. I got back on it for whatever reason. I'm back on it, and so I do it every day. So what's nice about
your scale has a body fat.
The scale, well, however good or bad it is, it does all the tracking. So it tracks all and it's only like a $30 scale, and these apps are nearly free, but allows you to track. And then you can see, all right, how's my body fat for, the past month, So
downward trending.
Yeah.
Scary for the rest of us, Captain America over here.
But it's I was showing this to a few of my dad friends that they are doing this as well, because it's kind of like our January, like, health kick. And so I showed them the last 6 months, and they were kind of like, Russ, you do that every day? I'm like, well, yeah. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it every day.
At least during the surge.
It's part of the habit. Yeah. But I'll kick off the habit and I won't do it for a year.
Yeah. Well, you go for about 3 months, then you bail. But you've learned something and then you change your behavior. So the other, I think that we use this for business that's pretty relative to our business and in physical therapy, but we use the Essentials Anatomies app. So this, I get more compliments on this app than anything
else.
Yeah, it's a decent price. It's relatively expensive, but it's called Essential Anatomy 5, and it's amazing. Like, we can look at a skeleton. I can rotate it in 3D, 360 views, up every angle. We add the muscles, ligaments. It's a little shaky on, like, cartilage, but as far as ligamentous stuff and muscle attachments, it's fantastic. And then show depth, show layers. It's just a great way to educate patients and get them up to speed on what's going on with them and the condition. It was so I use that all the time.
Perfecting the craft of telling a 1-minute story of the body, of why what they did, put the body on threat, and to say it in like 4 sentences while you zoom, show, here's the nerve, here's the ligament, that's what you did, now I have to do these things. They probably forget it, but they'll never forget the trust that the story created.
Yeah. I think also to see, like, The body's unbelievably complex, and I think there's such a mystery to people of like, why does my knee hurt, or like, why does it hurt? And then when you show the layers, like here's the bones, here's the ligaments, here's the muscles, here's the nerves, and then you can like point to which or multiple tissues are involved, and they're just like, okay, like someone understands what's going on. Thank goodness, because it's like me looking at a computer, like I don't know how to do it. It works when I tell it to, and then it's broken. I hand it to somebody else, you know. But it's the same thing here. It's like, body's broken, you come in, I want it, and how do I fix it? Like, well, this is what's going on. They're like, oh, great, okay. And what exactly do I do? Well, you do X, Y, and Z. Sounds good to me. You know, let's go.
Yeah.
So I think I think it makes it simpler. It makes it simpler and tolerable.
Yeah.
All right. How about social media?
I just do news. I do X and Substack. I got turned on to Substack because I take that back. I go onto X and I find out what's happening in the world. And then I find certain movers and shakers in the world. And then I find the podcast that they're on. And then I go on a podcast and then I'll get a hint of what they're reading, and then I'll find what they're reading on Substack. And so then I get the superficial view through X, and I get like a long form story through a podcast, and then I can read through the Substack, or some kind of like, or I'll just ask Grok or ChatGPT to find me the link of a particular research that they're pulling on, or a story or a book. But it's like a filtering. I started to think of it more like a filter. And if your only filter is too broad, then you're inundated with like too much shit. That's what TikTok and Instagram is just like, whoa, too much. Yeah. Whereas can we create a filter? Can I create like I want news, and then like, okay, I'll do that story. That person's interesting. Let me go learn what they say. And so I kind of like navigate through news to podcast to reading in that way.
Like it. Yeah, I don't really do social media either. I certainly don't use Facebook. I use the marketplace once in a while, which is crazy. I got burned on that the other day. Oh, I have a pretty strong faith in people, and I was looking at getting a sauna, as a matter of fact, like an infrared sauna. Mm-hmm. Lee and I were talking about doing that. I was like, that'd be kind of cool. So that's how I was like, obviously the deal was probably too good to be true, but it seemed like a really good one. So I was like, all right. I was like, I'll play. So I was like, hey, yeah, I'll take that. And then like, okay, da-da-da-da-da, and everything was like really, really legit. And then they're like, how do you feel about putting down a deposit? I was like, well, not very good. I'd rather not. And they're like, well, would you do $100? And I was like, no, I'll do 50. So yeah, I lost $50. I was like, and what was funny is that what happened, like when I did it, and then I should have learned, I knew not to do it, but I was like, I'll take the risk, because it seems too authentic in many ways. There was the Venmo thing was a little funky, and I should have got caught off there, but nonetheless, I still went through with it. And then they got me on they got pissed after that, but I was like, whatever. I knew I was gambling at that point. I figured I was just playing blackjack. So I'm like, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So then the lady comes back and she's like, I just talked to my husband, and the 50 isn't enough of a deposit for this. It needs to be 100. I'm like, fuck you guys. This is not human. This is not how people have conversations.
Well, that's a bigger trend of like, I think Craigslist had its like heyday for like what felt like 15 years, and then it started getting to some degree maybe evil or bad, or like you never know, and there's crime, and then maybe Facebook Marketplace tried to, I think they've emerged.
I think that was good because it tied to someone's account, right? So you like at least maybe see, are they been like, are they active? Do they have a personality? Do they have a family?
Right.
Do they have morals?
Right.
So I think, eBay broke all those rules and did it, and it was amazing. But yeah, I still like marketplace. You just have to be careful. But anyway.
What this speaks to is in general fraud, or being faked out, or being duped. And I think I think what all the social platforms are doing is kind of like having the blue check. Have you been? It was interesting. So I'm verified on X, even though I've never posted. I don't really have anything to say besides in this podcast.
You didn't pay for it?
I do have a paid account, but the paid account is because I wanted the AI, because I wanted to use the AI, because again, I'm trying to,
That's how you get the blue check then.
Yeah. No. The blue check was something separate. I had to send in my my vital information. I had to send in. I had to take a picture of my driver's ID.
Oh yeah.
Might even been my passport, but submit it to X. So then I get, like, oh, you are who you are. And that goes to my next one, which is kind of a recent app. I haven't had this app for a very long time, but it's a crypto app. I have Coinbase. And I was listening to a podcast by Mark Andreessen, who's kind of like one of the founders of Netscape, basically one of the co-founders of the internet back 40 years ago. And so quite the thought leader in Silicon Valley and a thought leader in the world. Think about that,
Netscape. How much has changed since then?
I mean, he was like pre-Internet Explorer. He was like pre-everything.
Yeah.
He was the beginning. Now, in a sense, then he's been on the board of every big business. He's on the board, so he's about as he knows about more. He's the real deal. So he's kind of like the guy, and he made an interesting comment. He made a point that said, with the capabilities of AI, it's going to be very hard to understand what's real and what's not in the world. I'm like, that kind of blew my mind. Yeah. You could show anything and it could be completely fake. You could have, this close up of a person saying something, doing something. Like, how do you know it's real? And he made a point to say that will be the question to solve, the riddle to solve rapidly by cryptography. Because then cryptography can, sort of stamp that is something true and it's unique. So it's almost like if you saw a video, how do you trust it's unique? Well, if it was a unique identifier tied to it, that there was only that one thing in the world and it could be verified, well, that's exactly what cryptocurrency is. And I'm not very good at that. I'm not good at Coinbase. I'm not good at Bitcoin. I cannot understand the science. That's kind of like my next kind of evolution mentally, just because I know it's not going away. We might as well get good at this. But once he said that, it broadened my understanding of actually, you can think of it as money or currency, but you could also just think of it as a unique thing, a token that's unique that cannot be replicated. Like as if you had a piece of gold. Well, there's unless you studied alchemy and were a sorcerer, you cannot duplicate that coin of gold. That's why it has value. That's why gold has value. Yep. Well, it's doing that for digital. Like that digital thing, there's nothing else like it in the world. And if you can do that, I think finally you can actually trust the internet again. But now if you see it on the internet, I don't know. How do you know anything is real? So it's you have to be a little.
It's amazing. I mean,
careful.
Right now it looks bad, but the dubbed over voices that they're doing, where they have AI take a video and then they change the voice to say things people aren't saying, and it's funny.
Yeah,
it's but that's not very far off from being if someone wasn't paying a joke with it, it'd be easy to confuse yourself and get sideways there.
Well, I think before media has manipulated everything to all you have to do is cut and paste really clever things, and you can make someone say something that they never said, which has been obviously been validated over and over in history. You can kind of make up a lot of things, but that got me interested in crypto. So I do have a crypto, but I'm pretty novice to it.
Yeah, I agree. Not a strong suit of mine either, but it's something I'm definitely interested in. On other social media, I like LinkedIn, so I do use LinkedIn, and I think that's a good tool. I think it's a great networking tool. I think it's a great way to collaborate and professionally, which is phenomenal, and I think very necessary in our space where our field of healthcare, specifically physical therapy, but any of the sites are very fragmented, where you have small groups of people, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10 people in a group. So to be able to be in part of a network of thousands of people across the world is really a powerful thing. And I think LinkedIn gives you a good platform for that.
They did a great job at really owning work.
Yeah.
Mission. It's not distraction. It's meant to, here we are, I'm looking at our most recent post with Nico helping someone with dorsiflexion with a band. And it's cool because it does tie the visual with the story, but it's always about a focus of work, which almost has to mean that you're doing something for others.
That post is actually about a scholarship that we offer.
Yeah.
But it's just the photo to tell the message. So you're right. It is about doing something for others and being it's designed to, target the developing sports medicine students that are in physical therapy school that are looking for a scholarship opportunity. So it's pretty cool.
Well, to kind of pivot on a philosophical thought, I was listening to Chamath Palihapitiya talk on the Tucker Carlson show, and Chamath is a Silicon Valley, guru, and he made an interesting point about Netflix. he was saying that it worries him that that Netflix's growth has been tied to rising growth in mental illness, particularly in children. You could think of like the anxious generation, that the more anxious society gets, the more the Netflix value increases. And obviously that's, the difference between correlation and causation are present.
Yeah.
But he made the same statement about Starbucks. Like Starbucks, the seller of sugary drinks, is not a great thing if they keep killing it, because it kind of means that we're just getting more obese.
Yeah.
So
as a large world, as a population.
Yeah.
He's seeing these things that are correlated, not necessarily causes. He's clear about that, but he definitely sees there's a correlation.
But I think if you look at the apps on your phone, it gets really interesting if you really ask yourself, do the apps represent joy and contentment and a fulfillment of a good life? Do they represent that? Then do they help you get there? Or are they a distraction? Which I think a distraction can come from boredom, it can come from anxiety, it can come from wanting to escape, it can come from depression. So if your apps are representative of distraction rather than fulfillment, you gotta be a little careful, which I think for many people, I was a little distracted when I was a kid. I was playing Mario Kart, I was playing Mortal Kombat. I like getting that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
But as an adult, you kind of learn I'm not saying video games are bad. I'm not saying watching TV is bad, but it shouldn't be like the fulfillment of your life. It's okay to have a distraction here and there, fine. We all do it. But if the distraction is the main show, if your apps on your phone are largely to entertain you,
it can be a problem. Yeah, I think it reminds me back to the Dan John conversation we've had with him, and that he's promoted about the shark bites and being clear about your thought process. You only have so much ability to consider challenging things and solve problems, right? So if you're in a day and your work or your life is such where you're solving a lot of problems. So I saw another CEO post this a couple of weeks ago. I think it was on LinkedIn. That was really good. And they were mentioning the same kind of concept where he's like, my day is so challenging, problem, dive deep, recommend, solve, blah, blah, blah. So how do I eliminate distractions in my life so that I don't have other problems to solve? So Dan John's big thing was he just wears the same shirt every day. He had 12 different black shirts. Well, no, they're the same shirt, all black. Yeah. There's 12 identical ones, identical twins. And then he would just pick a different one every day because it eliminates that problem to solve every day. Yeah. Which I can 100% relate to. I think this is one of the good benefits of uniforms. If you have a uniform at work where it's you don't have to think about that. You just wear the uniform, just put it on and go, For me, this is food.
Yes.
I've identified that's why. It's not that I dislike food, but food isn't an enjoyment for me. I don't crave it. I don't look forward to it. I don't celebrate it. I don't, because what I see is this massive distraction. And it's been this for my life. When I was younger, I was oddly motivated to be more adult-like and be more in pursuit, more success in business and life, I guess. Not necessarily business, but in life in some way. So, I always was focused on things. And I'm God, I have to go eat. This is so annoying. This takes so long. I have to choose what to eat. People always ask what you like and I'm I don't care. I just want to be done with this. And this is carried with me for at least 40 years. Unbelievable. But it's true. I've actually gotten the math. I think that just to have dinner, if I was to make it, the whole thing, I think it's at least a 3-hour commitment is where I'm at. 3 hours a day. Think about that. 3 hours a day to eat dinner. Now you say, well, there's no chance. It only takes me whatever you say, 30 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if you went and bought the food, okay, sure. And then you went through that process, let's just call that an hour.
Yeah,
right?
Organize the pantry, organize the fridge.
Yeah, then you come home, put it away, a whole thing. Yeah, let's just give you an hour, but it's probably even more than that. If you used Instacart, maybe that's a good reason to have it. I don't have it, that'd be a good reason. Then, you prepare it. You get up, you figure out what you want, you make it. Let's say that takes 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you eat it. If you do like most people, you want to enjoy it, do that whole thing. Maybe that's 20, 30 minutes. That's your 2 hours in now. Now you got to clean up and put stuff away. You're at least 30 minutes more in. So I'm at least 2.5 hours on it. If I'm, flying. I got better shit to do. I do not want to spend 2.5 hours. That's one meal. Not to mention the breakfast and then the lunch. You're 6 hours your day you're eating. Well, no wonder no one gets anything done.
A mild pivot on my end. So I brought Harper, my 8-year-old, to the grocery store yesterday. And I like it because it's like a fun mission. There's no decisions to make. So when I go to the grocery store, see, it's a tactical mission. I already know where all the bogeys are. I know where the spots are. I know our safe zones. And so she and I corral. I'm like, all right, you got these 3 things, go. And then I go to the butcher. While he's cutting my meat, she comes back. I'm like, now get those 2 things. So I'm like, get the spinach, get the broccoli, go ahead and get the mandarins. I want and so she gets all the produce while I'm just kicking back with the butcher, watching him slice through the meat. So I get that. And then we swoop around. I'm like, all right, now we go to the bread aisle. Okay, I want this granola. I want this sourdough bread. I'm going to go get the meat. So then I'm tackling the meat. She's going down the aisles and she's like, just precision. Boom, boom, boom. So like maybe 35 minutes, we're done. We come back. And she had a good time, because she felt like we were on a hunting mission, and we were hunting. Now, there's no decisions though. So, going to your point, whenever
because in your mind, there's only so few options.
That's right. I already know exactly what I'm getting. Yes. When I went to, I went shopping with one of my good buddies, Ryan. It was he got diagnosed with brain cancer. This is a serious story. He had vertigo. I couldn't help him. I tried. He tried another therapy, couldn't try it. Went to the doctor. They told him it was long COVID. Something was off. So he started getting vertigo very severely. Went to another doctor, brain scan, got the bad news. This was like vertigo that wouldn't go away. It wasn't like vertigo for 3 days. Like he was incapacitated. So he was literally like on the floor for like a week. He's like, something's way wrong. Just to let that be known. So I told him like, hey, we got to go to a functional health doctor. You got to get your health right. I want you to go shopping with me. And so we went shopping together. And I'm like, I want to show you the way of the grocery store. And so, in the yogurt aisle, I showed him the least processed yogurt. In the meat aisle, we aimed for the wild-caught grass-fed options. In the, processed, like, again, we're going to use the 5-ingredient rule. We got to know all the ingredients. I don't want any vegetable oil or any sugar, any of that crap. And then we went in the produce, and surprisingly enough, he goes, oh, are we going all organic? I'm like, less so. If it touches the ground and there's a chance that pesticides are laid in it, sure. Which means like blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, sure, probably get organic. But if it's got like a shell around it, like a banana, whatever. It's got its own natural protection. So I was a little bit lax on some things, a little bit more a little more rigorous on others. But we went shopping together, and he asked, how did you learn how to do this? And I told him, a lot of time. I spent a lot of time at Whole Foods, Nugget, Safeway, Rayleigh's, learned all their options, and now I can go in any of the store. And that was a massive skill set that I spent years to like learn. And I had to read quite a few food books and also some spiritual investigation of what do I believe in this food nonsense world.
You have to be, that's a great point. You have to be centered. You have to be centered.
You have to be centered. Like, what do I believe? Yes. It's like, you can't ask a doctor, what should I believe in? Yes. Like, no, you have to like really ask, what do I believe here? And once I had it, boom, now I run the mission. But sure did take a while to kind of get there. Or else you go to the grocery store and you're just like, what are we doing? Yeah,
I think that's a good thing. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. But that idea of having like a center of gravity, I think in life is extremely important. Maybe it does have to do with the social media idea. It certainly has to do with the grocery store, where you have to know like who you are, what you believe in, what's valuable to you. And then you can like maintain a course and a direction and like stay on it. But if you don't have that, I mean, you could be like a ping pong ball because you're going to get pulled over here and pulled over there and back and forth. And the grocery store is a perfect example of that.
It's a representation of chaos. And if you have a chaotic mind, you're not going to do well.
Yeah, you get attracted to it. Like it's designed for you to fail. Mm-hmm. Like I think American food is designed for you to fail. Like, hey, pick this. It's on sale and it's cheap, or whatever. And then they get you on a habit where like, that's great. I don't get that every time. And then it's a terrible choice,
Yeah.
But that's to my point. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. It's a skill set.
I'm proud of you. I don't have it, so how you go shopping? Be great.
Yes. You need an 8-year-old named Harper that can
I like that idea. All right. So then on the same kind of social front or news, you mentioned podcasts. Yeah. Or as one of your resources. So I just use the Apple one. I don't have Spotify or anything.
Oh, I have.
I also don't do music, food and music.
What's this one called? Is that the Apple one? I don't even know. Sure.
The little purple one,
Yeah, the purple one. Yeah, I have our podcast.
That's probably good.
And then I have a few ones that are like more on I got like into like manliness over the last year, masculinity. It was like a cool topic. I had never like read any books on it. So, anyways, I have a podcast called The Art of Manliness podcast, and then I have also one called The Nice Guy Show. And it was it was kind of fun dive on spirituality. And I think if you're a dude, you should probably do some masculine reading or masculine podcast. If you're a woman, I think you should do that. I think it's like great to like embrace what makes you,
once again, centered and grounded.
Centered and grounded. Yeah. It's, that probably fits for maybe 80% of the people in that particular sex, but
it's probably,
cool.
It's probably good being the different information that's available to people nowadays. It's probably good to see something that's rooted like that.
Yeah. I do some other podcasts. I found a podcast called In the Rack. It was another PT podcast. It was like, I guess kind of like this. It was kind of fun. I listened to our guy Jake, his Tactical Armament 2A Pro one. He's pretty fun too.
Well, you do all the classics. You got Huberman Lab.
The Huberman Lab. I got
You love All In.
Yep. I like the All In Pod. They're a fun group.
The All In's really good. You got me onto that. Like that was, I was a little hesitant with that, but that's been, I think it's a really good, like, certainly a lot of knowledge, a lot of business knowledge, a lot of exposure, and they've had, some good, like, pretty neutral political stuff where they look at it from all different sides, which has been super helpful for the last few years to kind of see, like, maybe where the logic of these things are at,
Yeah. I love the debate. I love the debate of like they would call it a first principle debate.
Yeah.
It's fun that way.
They have a lot of good things. Yeah, I think it's really good.
Yeah, and I do enjoy a little bit of philosophy, but I definitely enjoy business as well. And part of the business, like I'm listening to Lex Friedman's one with Mark Andreessen, and he talks about tech and AI, and I like listening to that stuff because I know it'll continue to disrupt the world, and I want to make sure that I'm on the edge of that disruption. I don't want to be moved by it. I want to be moving with it.
Yeah,
it's. I don't know what is that. I don't know what that is. I'm not sure what principle that is, but it feels right.
Yeah, well, yeah. You don't want to get ran over. It's probably a manliness principle. It's probably a good one. Don't get steamrolled.
Yeah. Embracing innovation. Now, okay. So I'm not an embracer of all innovation. I definitely did embrace like TikTok and I didn't. I'll do a little bit of doom scrolling through X. I do a little bit of entertainment scrolling through Instagram. I'll see TikTok only through Instagram. But what I hate about all those is I don't feel my life is better from it at all. Yeah. So it's like I'll do it as a distraction and I can't stand it. After wasting like 5 minutes of looking at stupid stuff, I'm like, that was stupid. I'm wasting my time. So I don't enjoy things where I don't feel I got better through the process.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So, but whereas podcasts, the deep forum podcasts that 2, 3, 4 hour talks, I feel like I'm learning for people who are pushing their knowledge, who are pushing themselves to the edge of their understanding of the world. I like being there, and I feel that that's not entertainment. I feel that's more. It's kind of like pseudo learning, pseudo enlightenment of like just a different perspective that I didn't appreciate. Yeah, and I like that. I like being there.
I tend to get more like I agree with you. Like using the social platforms. If I'm scrolling through, I'm usually getting business information from it more than anything. So I'll that would be one way. I don't have Joe Rogan's podcast. I don't listen to it. I don't really spend that much time. He's kind of slow for me, but I think his stuff's good. Mm-hmm. And I think I like some of his interviews. So I usually get the bites out of off of X or Instagram or something like that. It's kind of a cool way to get information. So a lot of times I'll get it in bites and then go from there. My podcast list is very, very brief. I only have really 3. I have ours. I have All In, thanks to you. And then I listen to Andy Frisella, to Real AF. So I do that on occasion. He's a little more on edge, that's for sure. He's certainly a patriot, and I like super pro-America. So I have a lot of fun listening to him. And he gets a little bit wild sometimes, but at the same time, it's pretty cool. But he's the guy behind 75 Hard. If you're familiar with 75 Hard, it's high-level personal performance, executive consistency, things like that. So I relate to those aspects of what he does. It's good. And like I said, sometimes he gets a little stupid about stuff. But
well, I think, if it's a bit comic, if it's a bit like part joke, part just, maybe just being funny, what I learned from Mark Andreessen is humor is where it's at. Humor allows you to push the edge of all human thought because you kind of flirt with the edge. You see if people laugh. Whoever's laughing, it's subconscious laughter. It's before you thought, you just started laughing. And so he kind of helped me appreciate that the role of humor in the world is very important. it allows us to be flirting with the edge and finding out where culture is moving
Where
toward.
will let you go?
Yeah.
All right, last category probably. Do you have any games?
No, I've got like a hairstyle game that my daughters might play that I hate it when they grab my phone and they're bored. They'll sneak it. So I have a few, like 3 hairstyle. I got Hair Salon.
So classic. Russ also has a unicorn lunch pail. It depends on the day. Some days it's a unicorn one. I haven't seen that lately, though. I think you feel like
I know. Margie got me a nice black one, so I had to dump all the old.
Just what was left over.
Yeah.
It was great because Scott, our PT, has one too. So I think it's great. You guys both have all girls. It's classic.
Do you have any games?
No, I don't play any games.
Isn't it funny?
I mean, Solitaire's on here.
What's like $1 billion industry, and yet it doesn't affect us.
I have Clash Royale, so my son can play, I guess, but he's always on his own phone, so he's always playing Battle Royale or Clash Royale or something. But yeah, I don't play any games.
The last game I played was
I don't have time for any games.
I think the best game, which I don't play enough of. I've got like a little dad friend group that I will play poker with.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
I think that's good.
I love poker.
Poker is a good game.
Yeah, but the digital games,
Well, I think you and I talk about this a lot about like I think games are really good to make your brain think and make a challenge and such, but our game is the game of business, and we're strategically thinking about that all the time. And I would feel so wasted if I spent 5 minutes or much less 30 minutes like playing a game.
Yeah.
Like solitaire or something, I would feel like, oh my gosh, I've just lost so much time that would have been valuable to like put into something else that to me is meaningful and has an impact on the community that we serve, an impact the people on our team, an impact on the patients that we work with. Yeah. Where it's like, I'd rather put my efforts and energy into that because it's just so much more rewarding to me. And it is a game. Yeah. And the fact of like the challenges that the world brings to us, the challenges of healthcare and insurance, the challenges of people and everybody coming together to collaborate to accomplish a certain goal. You know, these are hard things to do and to battle every day. And but I love the challenge. So I that's where I use the business apps to like brainstorm and do thoughts more so than.
Yeah, I think it's an important concept though. I think that if the phone ramps up its entertainment value in people's lives, then what goes down? I think going outside goes down. Yeah. I think playing actual sport games or board games goes down. And I think board games still allow you to connect and talk shit and push each other's buttons and get upset. Whereas, these games, they just, I don't know. Something's not right with it. It doesn't, it's not good. I think the more successful, the more entertaining the phone is, I think, society gets unhealthy. I know your bones will get less dense. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, the science is there.
Yeah, it's
well, the science is there on the other stuff too. Yeah. I think that's why I wanted to go through this, and like we get to talk a lot on this platform, and I thank you guys for listening, and I hope you get some good information from it. But the reasoning is I wanted you to maybe get a glimpse too of like the behaviors that there's no bullshit. Like it's not like Russ doesn't play any games. Like Russ doesn't. He has interested in the things on his phone or the things that he's using every day in like health and fitness and performance. And it's the same for me. That's the behaviors that we do. It's the way that we live. So to come on here and talk and say this is what we believe in or what we do at KIME is what we believe in is really, really core and true to who we are. It's not like, oh, it's what I'm feeling today or it's like a modification of it, but it's like this is it. This is how we do it every day. And that's what's there. And I think to your point, Russ, if you find that the phone has, or you're doing things on the phone that aren't true to who you are, or they're not what you want to be, then I think that's a huge opportunity for you to take a look at that and be like, all right, how could I rechannel some of my time, some of my efforts where I do things? Because if you're not getting the results you want, like in life or with your, injury recovery or whatever it might be that you've been distracted or pulled in a different direction and didn't realize it. Because these things are masterfully designed to do that, to get you off of the main path that you're on and get interested in something else. So I hope this is insightful for you. Jump in on the conversation. If you guys will share, have some comments, have some apps of your own that you like and love, I'd love to see them. Throw them in the comments, and we'll check them out as well, as long as it's not any like stupid games. But No, but I'd love to see what you guys got. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.